Hello, and welcome to another week of game development. Now, oh, that shouldn't be there. I was going to say I fixed quite a few bugs since last time, but apparently there's some lingering ones. Or maybe I just clicked on it accidentally. Yeah, one of the things I fixed is when a tile's on the edge, the walls correctly calculate. And then I did some work with the tooltips. So now, like this one, it tells you the selection mode, although refresh the actual UI when it does that. That's one thing that still needs to be done. And the other thing is I fixed that these were not displaying correctly. And the reason for that is basically when you entered the container that they're in, it was detecting that as the thing you were hovering over. So that's now fixed. And the first thing I think I'm going to do this week is I want to put some sort of interaction indicator over the entity. So like if it's searching through a chest, just want a little bar that goes over there. So yeah, start off with, I'm just gonna spawn the UI with it. Okay then, first thing, I think this issue is just caused by when I'm minimizing and maximizing the game. Yep, that's what it is. So I just need to put in something that detects if the game's focused. So that should fix that issue. And then I have got the basic indicator on, although it's not quite fully implemented yet, in that if I spawn another one, it'll probably break. So I'll just talk a bit first. But yeah, it took a lot longer to do than I thought it would. I had a look around for ways to do it with the entity component system, but unfortunately it seems there isn't really a way to do it with ECS. There is, I couldn't find it. There's some weird frame rate issues, but that's just on the recording, so I'm going to stop moving the camera around so much. Yeah, I couldn't find a way to do it with ECS, so at the moment it's just a regular UI object here, and then I can slide it back and forth. There's no data connected to this at the moment, and then I'm just feeding it the data from the position of the entity, and if I grab the entity here and I just slide it, you'll see it goes along with it. But if I grab another spawner and place it, I feel like this is going to either break it or it's going to ping between the two. So yeah, it just goes to the newest one. So that's all that does at the moment, which is not exactly what we want, so I do need to create a new way to instantiate them. But before I do that, I'm going to add rotation in, so it faces the camera. I think what I'll do is just feed the camera rotation to the health bar, and hopefully that should fix that. I probably won't get to... I might implement a fix for this, we'll see. The main thing is to get that working. Okay, not too bad. Just messing around with converting Euler angles and quaternions. Well, I don't have to do it, I can just input the functions, but that crashed. Okay, fortunately, restarting Unity seems to fix that. Next time it happens, I'll make sure to copy the console for restarting, just so I can see what happens. As I was trying to show, now when we rotate, it follows us, so I can see what's going on. Before I do anything else though, I think what I'm going to do is just this, because it's annoying me basically. So let me get to that. Okay, that was a pretty quick fix. I've got this inbounds function here, and that's now working correctly where it wasn't before. I would quite like it to update the approximate location, so if I'm moving here, it would keep the y, the x value, or if I'm here, keep the Y value, but I think this is fine for the time being. And then if I maximize the game here, you can see it doesn't place anything. And if I go off and click here, not doing anything, same here. So that's pretty good. Next thing, let's actually try feeding some data to this, I guess. Okay, some progress made here. So I can now place down a chest here. And when I place a spawner, mob will spawn, move over, start interacting. And that makes this bar fill up. I've got it set to, it's five, I think it's 10 seconds. And then once it finishes, it goes away. And then obviously, once that happens, it needs to then choose a new path and so and so. I've also got it to where it detects that it's a treasure object, so it runs a slightly different function if I want that to happen. Yeah, next thing, I think I'm just going to make it a lot clearer whether or not the game's paused, because I feel like that doesn't quite get the message across, so I'm going to play around with just a better indication of that. Okay, I've got something that I'm reasonably happy with. Now if I press pause, it's this thing that displays, although that's not scaling correctly like I thought it would. Unfortunately, so scale that more to like 10. 10 I want less. Well, okay, there's still stuff to sort out then. But because of my poor time management with the health bar, well, not health bars, but UI, don't really have much time left, so I'm gonna end it here, I think, because some of the other things that I've got to do are gonna require large changes, so I want to run some backups and stuff before. For example, if I replace, okay, apparently that is just broken now. Well, okay, apparently I've broken something, so that needs fixing. So I guess that's what I'll do between this video and the next is, oh, I'm an idiot. I've got the game paused. But as you can see, when placing large amounts of tiles, it's now slow again, so I'm going to try and make this run asynchronously. Yep. Hello, and welcome to another week of game development. Now, since the last episode, I've been working on improving the speed of the box selection. It's definitely faster, but as you can see, there may be some issues, so yeah, still got to keep working on that. Hopefully this should all be working now. So yep, there we go. I was just iterating over the wrong index in a nested for loop. I thought I'd fix this as well, but apparently that's not updating properly. So we'll see. But yeah, okay, now that that's done, well, I suppose I've got to do the deleting, which I haven't done yet, and it takes ages, and also doesn't work. So that is something I need to fix. And when I do that, I'll work out what we're going to focus on this episode. So those now work. So if I put delete mode on, delete all this, there it goes. A lot faster than it was. And the other thing that I've done is worked out what I want to do. And the first thing I want to do is I want to improve the movement of the mobs, because right now, okay, not all the issues have been fixed. Have to look into that. But right now, if we place down a chest And then I've made an improvement. I've actually imported the goblin, although the pathfinding isn't working. So lots of things to work on. But basically, what happens right now is it just slides forward to the destination. And I'm not confident enough in my animation to make a decent walk cycle. So my plan is to have it as sort of like a playing piece to go with the sort of Dungeons and Dragons theme, where instead of sliding or animating towards, it will sort of hop as if you're moving a playing piece. And that's also why I put this base on, so it looks like a playing piece. So yeah, I'm gonna work on these bugs, as well as see if I can get some more interesting movement. Okay, I've made some progress, but I'm really having trouble with mainly the height, because I want it to sort of hop. So I thought I'd just give you an update, because my next course of action is just to try a different approach to the way I'm doing it. As you can see, it moves across, waits, and then it decides to hop on the second one. Then it doesn't on the third one. It still clips through. Then it hops again. And then it hops again. As you can see, it's not getting there at the right time. So I think this is where I'm gonna have to abandon the code I've got at the moment for this movement, and then come back to it with a different approach. And I think I'm gonna have a quick go at that, but if I don't see any path to progress fairly quickly, I think I'll probably move on to something else. Okay, I'm glad I did that. It's still not perfect, but now there's definitely an improvement in the way it works, and it looks a lot better going through Liz and height. So right now I've got it going a little slower than I'd like. So yeah, and it's not quite the motion I'd like, but it's easier now for me to change the input. Yeah, so the next thing I need to implement is rotation, because if I put down another nest here and I put down spawner here, when this goblin spawns, it's going to move diagonally. Or it would, except it's not quite in the field of view, I don't think. So when this one spawns, weird, they're not picking up. That should be in the field of view. So I might have to look at that again. Hmm. It's got an 80-degree. That might be just outside of it. So let's 3 up, 1 across. So let's try 4 up, 1 across maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go here. That's definitely in the cone. So if this doesn't work, there's a definite error. Okay, there's an error. So I will look into this. All right then. So it turns out those are two separate issues. So the first one being the two things not pathfinding at the same time. That was just a stupid thing done by me. Basically, the mobs were using global variables in the pathfinding script. So what that meant is every mob was finding the same variables and then not working. So whereas before it wouldn't have worked, if I now place another one down, when this spawns, I should just turn down the timer for testing. That would be helpful, but as you can see, So now hops along merrily. Then the second issue was caused by the optimizations I'd done in the pathfinding. And what I was doing, as I said, is it takes the positions and then does a 10 by 10 buffer around them, and then only calculates those tiles. So it's not doing the entire dungeon. And the importance of that is that when it's at this corner here, it's less than 10 tiles away, which means that when you're doing the X and Z coordinates, technically, it's also Y flip-flops because it's 2D, 3D, whatever. But what was happening is that because it's not far enough away, the offset is 0, 0 because it starts in this corner. So the X and Y values are correct. But what was happening is when I was going further away over here, then there had to be an X and a Y offset, which meant that the calculation I'd done, one of the places I hadn't then subtracted that, because it's each of the pathfinding nodes stores the world position, and the node index for the pathfinding grid had to use a local position, so it needed to subtract the offset. And there was just one place in the code that I wasn't doing that, but that took quite a while to find because it's using the burst compiler, which the error logging isn't as comprehensive at the moment, so it just took a while to find out where it was and what was causing that. But what I was trying to do last time, I believe, was show you that rotations are now in. So if we offset and place one here, when this spawns, it should hop and then go an angle and hop. There it goes. Gives an angle and then hops back straight. So there we go. I'm pretty sure the system would break if it tries to turn around. Like if it's here and it tries to go this way, I think it'll break because there's only 8 positions that each mob can go from one tile to the next. So I'm just seeing each of those, storing that as a fixed angle and saying this is the target angle, and then interpolating towards that. But the problem is when I'm going clockwise, which I think is technically against convention, I think you usually go anti-clockwise. But anyway, I'm storing that as the positive, and then the other way I'm storing as a negative, which means that if it's here, that's a positive value. But then if it has to go to here, that's then a negative value. So in the future, I'll probably have to improve that system to work a way around that. I'm not quite sure how I do that. Maybe just if it's going left, start at 360 rather than 0, and then subtract, and then go around the other way. It's hard. It's the crossing between them that's the difficult thing on both ends, because going from 45 to 90, that's pretty easy. But yeah, so due to the fact that that took so long, that's going to be where I call it this episode. But I'm pretty happy. That movement is definitely a lot better. But like I said, there's still room to improve. But because I've reworked the movement system, it should be quite a lot easier for me to implement better movement. And there's still a little jerkiness with just the forward and back, not the up and down. So that's also easier to work out now. Hello and welcome to another week of game development. Since the last episode, the only thing that I've done is I just made some of the icons for the other objects. Now, to start off this week, I'm going to do a few things on the mobs, and then I'm going to move on from that for a while, and I'll explain the reason for that in a minute. But the first thing I want to do is related to the mobs. I'm just going to make an idling timer and then a sort of a scan function. So at the moment, all it does with a mob is it checks right in front of it if there's anything there. And then if it doesn't, it just stays still. So I'm going to make a scan function where if that doesn't see anything, it'll then rotate and check again. And same thing. And I'll also do an idle timer, so it just sits there doing nothing, counts down, and once it does that, it then runs another action or something. So, yep, I'll get on with that now. Okay, I've done that. It's still pretty primitive right now, but it works. So now, if I place a chest down, let's say here, and we place the spawner above it instead of below it, now when the mob spawns, it doesn't find anything, it turns, it searches, it turns, it searches. It found one, and as you can see, there are still issues with rotations. So I will be fixing that before we move on, especially when stuff like that happens. So yeah, let me see if I can find a solution to this rotations being strange. Okay, that's now sorted, or it should be. So in the end, what I decided to do was, rather than switching between positive rotation, negative rotation, I just kept it all as positive, and then after it's complete, it'll then do a normalizing check. So basically, if it's over 360 degrees, as in the actual rotation of the object, it will subtract 360. So if it's 365, it then goes to 5 degrees. And if it's less than 0, it will add 360. There's a bit of a lag spike there. I don't know what that was. But yeah, as you see, it hopped around. And then I had a thing at the end where it faces the object. Although I am actually cheating at the moment because it just faces north. It's the same trick that I'm doing where even if I rotated the chest before placing it, it wouldn't actually change where the mob goes. It's just going one tile south. So that is a thing that does still need to be implemented. What I thought I'd do is I'd sort of work forwards from the perspective of playing the game. Okay, so I've done the minimum depth. I decided against doing the requiring a certain type because I'm not entirely sure how I want to implement that. And because I've added a minimum depth, that then solves the issue of accidentally placing up here, because this is a depth 0 and every object's default depth is 1. So now I can come in and if I place down in the entrance, ta-da, it spawns. But this is led to two things that I think I want to do. One is do a option for a maximum amount of a certain object, because I don't think you want, I don't want more than one entrance at the moment. It might be something I have later. But I think that's probably a good idea. And at least having that, it can restrict it, so maybe you can unlock the ability to have more. And the second thing is, as you can tell here, I want the ability to force placing along the wall. Okay, so I've now done that. If I make an area here, and then I'll make some bumpy bits to show that the detection works properly. I don't need to do all of them. Anyway, so if I now go to this and pick on the entrance, you can see it lets me place it. If it's poked out, it doesn't, can't intersect. And then the rotation works. And it's optional, so you can still place regular objects. Yeah. I didn't actually add I forgot to add the countdown. Not countdown. Max number. But okay then, after quite a while of thinking, the way I think I'm going to do it is that the dungeon will have its own level associated with it. I'm not sure what the unlocks will be to raise the level at the moment, but the idea would then be that you have a certain amount of mana generators that you can place per level, and that then creates your mana. So I originally thought if it costs mana to place a mana generator, you're just going to place a bunch of mana generators. So it has to have some other cost, and I figured having a fixed amount makes sense. So if I come in here and place them down, let's just place one for the time being. I've just got a cube on an angle. And if we pay attention to the mana total, after 10 seconds, it ticks up. And I'll just place a bunch down just to speed this up. There's no set limit at the moment. To do these, actually, I realized the placement system was not actually incorporating. See, we're ticking up fast now. We're not actually incorporating the position of the prefabs, so I just had to add in the base positions and rotations of all of them. And yeah, so I haven't put the object limit in yet because that requires a bit of setup. See, now we're at 100 mana and it stops ticking up. But if I pause and if I come into the dungeon controller, and I have at the moment I've got it so that the timer on each of these, if I pick one and go in here, you can see the timer here is negative. So on the next frame, it will tick in instantly. Because it's full, it doesn't do anything, so it doesn't reset at the moment. If I come in here and change the mana back down to 50, and then hit resume, it instantly jumps up. So I added a pause timer. Hello, and welcome to another week of game development. Where I left off last time, I mentioned about implementing the object limits, which I've now done. So I've set mana generator to only allow one. I place down, so it's now grayed out. I press, I think it was G did I bind it to? Yep. That then decreases the count, so I can add another one. And another thing I've added is the ability to lock the item. So if it's not available yet, and that's what that looks like. You can see I can't click it. Yeah. As you can see, I have to manually decrease the amount because if I go into delete mode right now, nothing happens. So what I'm going to do now is add deletion for objects because it doesn't work at all. Alright then, I have now added the ability to delete entities. If I just put down some examples here, this, and then I do delete mode at the bottom right here, I click on it, goes away, goes away, goes away. So that wasn't too bad, although I do actually have to add the mana value back in. I'm not doing that at the moment. As for what to do next, that's something I'm not entirely sure of. Apparently I'm not updating the block tiles correctly. Okay, so before we do anything else, I'm going to fix these issues. So adding the mana value back in, adding the toggling the delete mode when selecting a new building to place, and making sure to remove the obstruction field from the tile. Okay, I'll get into that now then. Alright then, that's sorted. So I place down an entrance again here. So these two tiles, and then delete it. Now when I create a new object, it toggles off delete mode. As you can see, all these tiles are available for placement. Now, I did do the mana cost, but I've just got that turned off at the moment. It's just annoying. Well, I suppose I should probably turn it back on and then just set my base mana to a very high level. Yeah, so what I've decided to do next is work on the floor system again. And obviously that sounds like a stupid thing to do because I spent so much time on it. But there's two reasons for this. One is at the moment, none of the tiles have any UV mapping to them, so I can't apply textures and things. And I started thinking about what tiles I actually want, and I thought one of them would be a floorboard type pattern. And that led me to think, well, some of these tiles have direction, so I then need to add that in as well. And I added on top of that the fact that I've finally worked out how to do materials. If I just spawn this test entity here, you can see it's green on one half, brown on the other. And then if I just grab it, just straight from the inspector, that's what it's so. But if I grab this and let's just move it out. Oh, that's rotation. If I just move it out the way on the X, ignore the fact that it's now skewed. I think that's supposed to be one. Yeah, there we go. So if I now come down into this controller here, and if I check this option off of use material 1, and I press spawn again, ta-da, it spawns it with different materials. So I finally worked out how to do that. That's rotation again, translation. There you go, and I can even change this again. So let's just pick something random. Let's do, why not? Let's just do floor testing, and I've done prefab too. What should we do? Any material works. Do this cushion material. So if I spawn again, ta-da. So what I'm planning on doing is, well, that's flickering. So rather than redoing the system from scratch, everything that's working out what tiles are which can stay. All I need to do is update this. So this floor tile creator, I can make a tile set like we've got. Let's do this one. And then where it has this materials thing, I'm going to change this to be to work with directions and such. So if you want it to face a certain direction, then it'll have full textures. So you just do, it just picks the right one. And then rather than trying to do something where it calculates like joining, so if you had floorboards running this way, floorboards running this way, I'm just going to have those as separate tiles. And then I'll work out how to display that neatly in the UI later. So what I need to do now is go through all the tiles and UV map them, which is going to take a while. Fortunately, they can all use the same texture, because I'll just use the full and then crop them slightly differently when I'm wrapping them. If the corner's cut off, I can just change where that wraps to. And then I'm going to update this system, and what that means is that in this hierarchy here, there won't have to be so many of these different things. It will just be one for each of the tile sets, and that also means that it cleans up this project file a lot more, because we don't have to have all of these prefabs for every single variant. Because I've got one for the blank tile, that's fine. Then the dirt one has a bunch as well. So all of these can go once I've made that, and it'll just make everything so much cleaner. And I think that's probably the best way to do it, because that means that I probably won't be making many, if any, more actual tile set variants, because they take so long to make and everything. So going via materials is a lot faster way to do it. So yeah, I'm gonna get on with that now. Oh, I'll quickly say this is going to take so long that this is probably going to be where the video ends. So don't be surprised if it does.